So when I say I belong to a clan called Namchu Aden, so Lepcha is a derogatory term that is given to us by the settler colonists or the colonizers. We call ourselves Mutanchi Rumkup Rumkup, which means the children of the god, or the creator, the from the White Mountain. So when we kind of go back to our clans, we all have our sacred lake, we have our sacred peak, and our sacred cave. So the spirit, our spirit enters through the cave and goes and under the lap of the ancestors, which is the mountain peak and the lakes. So even there are, I don't know where is my particular peak in that mountains, but there are clans which they have the lake and they have the peak to say my clan comes from there. So our clans are based from the watersheds, the small hillocks, and the caves. So when we say river guardians and what the deities, each and every mountain peaks around this Nimaya land becomes our sacred guardians and our deities. And whenever there is anything there, whenever there's a dirty something, dirt or some people pollute the river, there are stories of clans getting affected by it, that we get affected, like literally either ill health or we meet with an accident or something like that. So it becomes our duty to protect those deities, or our guardians or our sacred rivers. But and also during this 2007, when I was in college, I came to know there was a big dam which was being made in the hydro dam, which is being made on the sacred lands of Songu, which is where mostly the Lepchas live in. And it shook my whole world somehow. I did not know why. That I had to quit my job as an advertising professional and leave everything and go back to the mountains to document their stories. I don't have any reason why I did it, but there was this compelling, this conviction that I have to go back to really understand this. It's been a long journey since 2007, but it's also sometimes the deities kind of call you, the nature spirits call you. And when we talk about our guardians, we have Parilbu, which is the water dragon, which is the protector of these landscapes. And we also have our birds who are shapeshifters, who come in the form of a healer or messenger, like in most of the ancient communities. So when we talk about our river deities, the land deities, every watershed, every bamboo, every plant becomes very important for us to kind of really regard them. And we are told that whatever we pick from the Mother Earth, we should always give it back. So there is, if we have pick one pebble, we are supposed to give back the pebble back to the river. So this is the kind of our belief system that we have. And yeah, our Chu the Lep, that's how we call it. Our clans have Chu, which is the white mountain, not necessarily a white, but can be a hillock. The is the lake, and Lep is the cave. So that's what it is.
Thank you. So now I'm actually going to turn the next question, very similar question, over to Yolo and Alejandro. And if you can share a little bit about the spirit guardians of the Antigua River watershed.
Con gusto. Los ríos y las vertientes que conforman la cuenca conocida como la Antigua, proviene de un territorio muy viejo, en el que han habitado distintas culturas como los olmecas, los totonacos y los huastecos. Estos hombres antiguos han convivido con la naturaleza, el agua, el fuego, la tierra, el viento. En sus cosmovisiones existen dioses o seres que la cuidan y están vinculados con la fertilidad, la muerte y el nacimiento de la vida. Por ejemplo, para los olmecas, los habitantes más viejos, para ellos el jaguar simboliza la noche. Es el nahual encargado de vigilarlo todo. También existe Huehueteotl, el dios del fuego, del hogar y la sabiduría. Entre los huastecos, llamados asimismo Tenec, vive Mushi, el señor del mar. Es el abuelo trueno, dios de la lluvia. Él hace madurar los frutos y mantiene verde la naturaleza. La señora madre tierra es Mintzabal, es fértil y marca los ciclos de la vida, nacimiento y muerte. Para los totonacos, el señor del trueno, tiene un poder sobre las nubes. Es Tajín, el agua y el viento. También existen los dueños que son los responsables o cuidadores del medio natural. Por ejemplo, existe Expuchiná Tiyat, que es tierra, Expuchiná Luyut, fuego, Expuchiná Chuchut, agua, Expuchiná un dueño del viento. A ellos se les debe pedir permiso para trabajar el monte. Hay que llevarles una ofrenda, de lo contrario pueden enojarse.
The rivers and springs that make up the basin known as the Antigua come from a very old territory. Different cultures have inhabited it, such as the Olmecs, the Totonacos, and the Huastecos. These ancient men have coexisted with nature, water, fire, earth, wind. In their cosmovisions, there are gods for beings that take care of it and are linked to fertility, death, and the birth of life. For example, for the Olmec, the oldest habitant, the jaguar symbolizes the night. It is the Nahual in charge of watching over everything. There is also Huehueteotl, the god of the fire, home, and wisdom. Among the Huastecos, the Tenec lives Mushi, the lord of the sea. He is the grandfather thunder, god of rain. He makes the fruits ripen that keeps nature green. The lady of Mother Earth is named Zabal. She is fertile and makes the cycles of life, birth, and death. From the Totonacos, the lord of thunder, Tajín, has power over clouds, water, and wind. There are also owners who are responsible of caretakers of the natural environment. Pushina Tiyat, earth, Pushina Ukuyut, fire, Pushina Chukut, water, Pushina on honor the wind. They must be asked for permission to work the forest, and offering must be brought to them, otherwise they may get angry.
Thank you. Thank you, Yolo and Alejandro. And now turning the word over to Jonel with this question. Jonel, in light of everything shared by your fellow panelists, can you speak about water and water's roles and responsibilities? Can you speak about water's consciousness?
Yeah, so in the language we say ohneganos. That's how we say water. And geographically where we are on the St. Lawrence River. And the St. Lawrence River connects the Great Lakes to the Atlantic Ocean. So the Haudenosaunee, the Ganyankahaga specifically, were across the eastern seaboard, right? Probably just up from like New York City all the way up into Quebec in those areas. And so we had the Adirondack Mountains, and so we are always currently trying to get land back, but also acknowledging those waterways. And so we were so skilled at navigating waters that it was said that we even traveled down to Egypt, and we made relations with people in Egypt, and we also helped them travel the Nile. So we had all these beautiful relationships with each other to navigate each other's lands and each other's waterways. But in the spirit of water, right here, because we're on this political border, a lot of people bring all kinds of things back and forth over that border. And what's very interesting is my 38 years that I've been here on Mother Earth in this lifetime and this territory by these waters. The river has always taken men. It very rarely ever takes a woman. And that's always and so we always keep those things, in mind. And when we talk about water and when we talk about things, we were told things like men who like to fish or like to be on the water, That's their relationship with the woman, with that feminine energy, and how they come into balance and how it can calm them. So there's ways in which we have these, not so much gender, but just the energies of masculine and feminine coming into balance, coming into fusion, coming into creation. And so oftentimes, because I know that what we did is we looked at the natural world, and like it told us, it was constantly in communication with us. Mother Earth is constantly problem solving. She is constantly trying to figure out all these problems that are happening. Her kids are fighting. She's got kids over here trying to be good with the land. She's got kids that ain't listening at all. So we're like all in relationship with each other. And so I think, like, yes, there's origins and there's ways, but like I want to acknowledge everybody talking on the chat here. Like, I know I'm not like typing out because I'm trying to be present, but I am reading your comments, and I think that those are great questions. But speaking back to the land, so what I do when I'm in like a problem or I'm struggling, is I found that because I would struggle with anxiety, I'm constantly dealing with violence. There's like 13 multi-million-dollar law enforcement agencies overseeing our community. So there's just a lot of different environmental violence. They've poisoned our rivers. We have super PAC funds right by every single indigenous community across New York State. So there's all these different levels of violence that we're constantly under. And we're only 10 miles long and 3 miles wide. And there's 13 multi-million-dollar law, all fighting over who's gonna surveillance us, and I don't know, whatever else they plan on doing. But what I do is I take salt baths. And this one time, like when I was taking my salt bath, I was really trying to like settle my mind or figure out what was going on. And I remember when I got into the bath and I put my ears under the water, I realized that it drowned everything out. Everything. And the only thing I could hear was my own heartbeat. It was the only thing I could hear under the water was my own heartbeat. And so I started listening to it. And as I was listening to it, it sounded like a march, 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 march. And then I thought I could just feel all these women inside of me, every mother that came before me in my heart, marching, marching, marching. And I thought, how beautiful that when we come here, we are actually water creatures for 9 months, 9 to 10 months. We live in water. And sometimes I have to go back to that womb. I have to go back to that source of life and remember my origins and remember my life-giving women that I have the opportunity and honor to carry forward. So that gives me purpose. It gives me honor. It gives me responsibility. It gives me all kinds of things. I inherit so much by taking responsibility. And I think we don't like accredit that enough. It's a beautiful thing to take responsibility of the land and the water and ourselves. And so when I'm trying to solve conflict, this one time I was trying to help people come out of prison, and I was also trying to help missing and murdered indigenous women. And sometimes those two things come across each other. And so I'm trying to stop men, right? And trying to encourage men and to like not like, harm the people that love them, or and then I'm over here trying to, and this one time I couldn't figure it out. I was in this pinch, and I asked for an answer. I asked how I don't know what to do. And as soon as I asked that question, I don't even watch TV. But for whatever reasons, I turned on the TV, and what came on? The whole creation of Mother Earth. And she was actually, get this, she was actually met with violence within her Cosmo community. She was met with violence. And it is a direct result of that violence that she experienced that she is the only one within her planetary family to what? She's the only one. She's the only one to carry as much water. And so what that taught me was that she took that violence that she experienced in her community and she made water with it. And what came from water? Life as we know it. So that's what I decided to do. I said, that's it. How do we respond to violence? You know, so you can create life with violence. You can generate something or you can let it harm you. There's options sometimes, but sometimes we're not given options or we're not given the creative, like she was saying, the space or the influence or the relatives or the exposure or the opportunity, right? And so anyways, I just thought that that was so beautiful. And so I'm like, if she can do that, so can I. And so water carries the most memory. It's the best conduit. It has so much. So, and if we're 80% water, there's 13.5 million years of memory in our bodies because we are made of water. And so I think that if nobody tells us that, and if nobody treats us like we're these just as rare, beautiful stars as we see in the night sky, then we're not gonna be like that. We're not gonna be in relationship with that. And that's the thing is the family. I just want to say this real quickly. Family. We say a quadrille, our fire. We're all 98 degrees and we all have a fire. Imagine that. We have a fire in a body of water. That's what we all are. And that's beautiful and it's magical. And I want to just talk about family because family and home is the first school, right? And it's through our relationships, our first relationships, you know, our mother, our siblings, our family is what initially teaches us our primordial intimate relationship with the land. And so making things right with our kids is a great time. And you got little people in your life, I'm so happy for you. Go find them. You find all the little people you can get and you tell them that the earth is beautiful, that they're beautiful, that the water's just like from another world that was created in a celestial place. Like you tell them those things so that their mind isn't limited because they won't suffer like that. And when you're free in your mind, you can have some peace. And we all want a little bit of that. So anyways, the next generation should always be better than us. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, well, thank you. Deep gratitude again for your words. And now I'm going to be asking a question that is for all of the panelists today. And I am very lucky to be in this virtual room with such amazing educators and storytellers. And I'm going to turn the word over to them so they can talk about their storytelling practice and how the art of storytelling brings to the communities to honor and respect the natural world. And for this, I'm going to first turn the word over to Yolo and Alejandro. The word is yours.
Contar historias es una práctica muy antigua, donde las personas podemos tejer nuestras creencias, espiritualidad y lo que nos da sentido a la vida. Por medio de la palabra transmitimos mensajes sobre acontecimientos e historias de vida. También lo hacemos para describir el lugar en el que vivimos o porque tratamos de explicar las emociones que sentimos al tocar, ver, escuchar, oler, saborear el nacú, el corazón de nuestro entorno.
Storytelling is a very ancient practice where people can weave their beliefs, spirituality, and what gives us meaning of life. Through words, we convey messages about events and life stories. We also do it to describe the place where we live, or because we try to explain the emotions we feel when we touch, see, hear, smell, taste the naku, earth of our surroundings.
Las moralejas son para nosotros las lecciones que se nos ofrecen para comprender el mundo y respetar a los espíritus de la naturaleza. Los cuentos también nos regalan imágenes de las voces de los ríos, los animales y los entes. Es un acto mágico en el que no es visible, lo que no es visible toma forma a través de la imaginación y la palabra.
The morals are the lessons offered to us to understand the world and respect the spirits of nature. Stories also give us images of the voices of the rivers, the animals, and the entities of nature. It's a magical act in which what is not visible takes shape through imagination and words.
Entonces, contar cuentos, escribirlos, compartir la historia de nuestro entorno es una forma de ofrendar a esos espíritus de la naturaleza. Por medio de la palabra alimentamos su nacú, los mantenemos vivos. Nosotros pensamos que la gente no solo está hecha de moléculas, sino de historias vivas para compartir y reescribirlas todas las veces que sean necesarias, en el tiempo y en el espacio que habitamos.
Telling stories, writing them down, and sharing the story of our environment is a way of offering to the spirits of nature. Those words, we feed their naku, we keep them alive. We think that people are not only made of molecules, but of living stories to share and rewrite as many times as necessary in the time and space we inhabit.
Beautiful. Native stories. Thank you. Thank you. I'm now going to turn the word over to Minket.
Storytelling, it's something I it is a journey that I took, coming from the space when I felt like children are not getting educated to the whole idea of what local culture was about. And after I made the film, I felt like people did not know the river that it's the next door river, but just they did not know where the river was. I asked them, which river do you come from? They didn't have answer. So I came from that space of like, we don't teach children about our local ecology. And through this folklore, I can actually tell the stories about the local ecology. So the intention came from there. And it's almost been 7 years of me telling the same story to everybody, different parts of the world, different times, to the same audience sometimes. And it has changed. Now the story has become a ceremony in itself. And I realized that for me, the storytelling part of it mostly came from the intention of why I was telling the story. And I guess that's what our ancestors were about, where they would sit down. The intention of telling the story was not to entertain people, but it was to educate. And the education came from the reverence of the land. And knowingly, unknowingly, I think I went through this journey. And now I feel that the most important part of the storytelling is the listening. Our mind and our head and our body is not listening anymore, even if our ears are open. So, the most important part of when I sit down to listen, tell stories, I ask people to listen to their body first. Because the body is always speaking. There's so much of memory our body's carrying, right? And it's only when we shut down the voices is when the story enters as a medicine. And for the story to enter as a medicine, you have to listen with your heart and not with your head. So the journey that I am going through, and I guess I will be going through, is to kind of become the ancestral stories to become a medicine for the people who wants to listen. I mean, there can be like 1,000 people in the room, and there'll be just one person listening, and that one person is getting the medicine. And like, I guess the storytelling is not about uh, it's not about an agenda, it's a healing space for person who is telling. For me, when I tell this story, I'm trying to find a way to heal myself with the trauma that I have gone through, with the rivers that have been dying from my land. So every time I sit down, I kind of try to be the voice for the rivers that is suffering. So when I sit down with this intention, probably there are places and people and ears that listen to this pain with that same intention. And that's when it enters as a medicine. So I know there's a lot of buzzword that goes around with storytelling these days, and seeing this as a content, and like making a film like visual storytelling and stuff like that. But I really find like a kind of detachment from these buzzwords, really, because I've worked in advertising too, so I know what it's like to sell products, right? So, so I think storytelling is very sacred if you allow it to be. But for the storytelling to be sacred, you really need to work on the intention of why are you telling those stories, and what's the purpose of you telling those stories. Sometimes you might not know the purpose, but your gut tells you that you need to tell the story. And that is a time when I realized that I'm just a medium where the story wants to be told. So for the future generation, or for that matter, I don't know if, and I say keep saying future generation, I would like to stress on the fact the future intentions. Even in an old body, you can have new intentions being born every day. So I don't mean small children all the time. I mean to say like a young consciousness coming in the old body too. And that is a birth, and that's a birth. Sometimes we have very, very young people with an old mind, and they are the knowledge keepers for us, which we need to listen. But we kind of have these bodies and we kind of represent ideas behind it, but we don't really um, accept them the way they are. So when I say for future generation, I also mean the future hope, the future dialogue, future perspective. So that what is more important is to kind of bring in the intention and honesty to the intention of the stories, because these are not entertainment. These are our prayers, which comes in the form of a song, comes in the form of a dance, comes in the form of even literally like just walking by. But it's the intention that needs to be very strong for these stories to become a ceremony and for it to become a medicine for whoever needs it. So it's very, very personal, this space that I went through, and it was a journey in itself. But I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you. And now finally turning the word over to Janelle. If you could answer, you can think of storytelling, but also think of all the powerful work that you do with education. Turning over the mic to you.
So I was thinking about how storytelling allows the muscle of imagination to flex itself. And what's really neat is we are in very much a psychological war, right? And so sometimes these because even stories carry a vibration. Even the person telling the story carries a vibration. And so, like you were saying, yes, all of those things are felt. There's a whole bunch of communication happening that we don't get time to strengthen, that nobody explains to us. And so, a lot of times it's just logical, right? But we have emotional intelligence that also goes into storytelling, right? Intuition and all of these other sensory, sensual things. And so, and those are very much like how we get to create and how we get to come into our sexuality, into all of those things. And when I think about imagination, I remember maybe some of you has heard this was like a pretty famous book, but it was called The Body Keeps the Score. And I remember reading that book, and anyways, in the book, the guy was like working with veterans who were in the war. And you know how they pull up those cards and they show an image and they ask them like what they see. And he said that there was one card that he would show to all the veterans. And he said he would only get two responses. And either one response was that it reminded them of like something very like traumatic, like maybe their buddy lost his arm or somebody's, it was that was one response. And he said the other response was nothing. And he said that both responses were the same thing. And he said that they were the same thing because neither one could see past the problem. And so, what that taught me was that, or what he said was what really helped with trying to combat trauma was the ability to imagine, right? To have that, because you have to imagine yourself. You got to see in your mind getting over or through the problem. And if you don't have the ability to imagine that, or that, you might not be able to move forward from that. And I thought that that was so beautiful. I'm formerly incarcerated. I went to they tried to send me to a maximum security prison for 12 and a half years, and I fought my case and I won. But while I was in that prison, I studied psychology, and I was reading up on Freud and Jung and meditation and all this and that. And mind you, like I don't have no degrees. I don't have no institutional conditioning training other than just being criminalized my whole entire life. That was a joke, kinda. But anyways, I so any in the spirit of storytelling, when I go into the schools, I own all of this. I own every place that I've been. And I go in there and I tell those kids I've done some really great things and I've done some not so great things. And you know what? I'm not a role model and I'm not a leader. I'm a mother, and it's the best title I could ever carry. It is the one thing that's going to speak to my life, what I did, what I didn't do. Like that's what I want to uphold. So if you're going to attach me to any box or any identity, just know that at where I'm at in my life right now, I'm a mother and I'm proud. I brought life into this world. I'm here. I'll do anything for you. I love you. And I tell those kids, you know what? We go through so much, right? There's so many things we experience, loss and tragedy and oppression and violence and all this stuff. I said, but you know what, kids? You know what's great about dying? I said, what's great about dying is there's no more fear. I'm not afraid to tell you I love you. I'm not afraid to come in here and own everything that I've done because I know now that it makes me 20 times stronger for owning my stuff. And I tell them, go ahead, make mistakes. Make every mistake in the book. It's okay. That's what you're here to do. But don't waste them. Your mistakes are where your school is. We're all on Earth school. So don't let any of this mess you up. And I try really hard when people say who do you work for, I say the kids. All of them. Every single one of them. They are my responsibility. And if nobody teaches us that and nobody puts that kind of integrity and passion into us, I don't know. I don't know. So everything that the land told me to do was to tell the people like you, like the land talks do, land talks to me too. And she told me to tell everybody to go and make things right with your kids, because if you want to people are worried about the future because they don't pay attention to their kids. If we were at peace with our kids and knew that we were giving them everything they needed to survive, we wouldn't be worried about what's coming next. And right now, we're pulled away from our children. We're a part of an economic, well-greased machine. The mothers are everybody's out of the home. And you know what? They even created schools to get more work out of parents so they wouldn't be home with their children. So corporations know our kids better than we do, right? They know who they're talking to, what they're listening to, all of these things. And so when I go into the school, I teach them how to be a human being. Here's the blueprint. I've been through so much. I'm not afraid anymore to be vulnerable, to try and tell you the truth, to come in here and speak against everything they're probably telling you. And I'm surprised they even let me back into school, to be honest with you. I'm surprised, yeah. Um, but anyways, you know what? Those kids, they tell me they pull their sleeves up and they got scars. Oh, they're chopping their arms up. And they say this school does this to me, makes me feel like this. So I go in there and I say, kids, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But you know what? Don't think that nobody's out here. We're out here trying to make it better. So don't think nobody cares. Don't think nobody's listening. Don't think nobody. We are. I'm right here. Tell me if who's picking on you. Where are they hurting you? Because part of protecting the children is protecting the mother. And we're not protecting our kids. We're pushing them in there. We're saying, get there on time. Be there every day. And the world don't work like that. Seasons don't work like that. Everything changes. And the winters were times for storytelling. This is where we came back in the home. Everybody comes back in. And so, in this, with oh my God, I was going off about all kinds of stuff. But anyway, but in the spirit of storytelling, I also, because sometimes they cry when I start talking to them like this, and they sit there and they're like, I can see them. So what I do is, because like I feel like I have whatever they call as attention deficit, because I have like a hard time sitting still. I have a hard time I have a hard time. And so, and I know a lot of our kids do. So what I do is I just walk around in circles. I walk around the room and I tell them that I walk around to the right. And in our ways and in our ceremonies, we go to the right. And the reason why we go to the right, because that's the way in which the world turns. So we go into the direction of life. And if we were going to acknowledge death, we would go to the left, because that's the direction of death. Right? And so there's these different ways. So even when I'm in there, I'm creating life for them. And I'm creating this space to be a human being. And I'm telling them that it's okay. You don't have to, I'm trying to uninstitutionalize them. And then I sing them a song. And I'm going to sing it to you right now. And I sing to them, Gaeli Niungwedige, which is the four sacred beings. And in this song, the song and the words are asking that these four sacred beings, that they all look over you and your family. And so all of our songs carried these medicines, and all of these songs replicated the natural world. Gaeli Niungwedige Wanduga Asquayana waze Zeyata nunanea Kwajile Uwanduga Asquayana waze Yo ho Hana yo ho ya he yo ho Hana yo ho ya he yo ha yo ho yo ha yo ho Hana yo ho ya he yo ho Hana yo ho ya he. So anyways, I sing those kids that song, and then it usually calms them down. And I sing to them like a mother sings to her child. And, I nurture those kids, and I let them know that someone sees and hears them, because every generation before them said, I didn't feel seen and I didn't feel heard. And I listened. I listened to all of those elders. And I said, okay, all right, kids, I'm going to hear you and I'm going to see you every chance I get. So anyways, I know we got 10 minutes left, guys. So anyways, there's my song and my speech.
Yoa, thank you. Deep gratitude for your words and the song. Thank you. And I know, yes, we have 10 minutes left, and I want to give a chance to you all to answer some of the audience's questions. So we actually will not ask the final question, but I want to give time before we go to the audience's questions for Minket, Yolo, and Alejandro, if you would like to have any last final words following up on anything that was said.
Queríamos cerrar, si quieres, les voy a leer un pequeño párrafo al final. Ajá.
Perfecto.
Que habla sobre cómo reconectarnos con la naturaleza, ¿no? Tenemos diferentes contextos y para nosotros existen muchas formas de reconectarnos con la naturaleza. Nosotros, por ejemplo, agradecemos a través de un pensamiento o una oración la existencia de nuestro entorno y la posibilidad de habitarlo. Otra forma de reconectarnos es observando el ciclo natural de todos los seres, respetarlo y no ensuciarlo. Y en nuestras acciones cotidianas generamos desde una pequeña composta, cuidamos a las abejas nativas, consumimos alimentos locales y a través de los cuentos transmitimos mensajes a las personas para que todos en conjunto aprendamos a cuidar nuestro entorno. Esa sería nuestro párrafo de cierre.
Y después este, ¿no? Leo este.
Sí.
There are many ways to reconnect with nature. We, for example, give thanks thought, a thought of a prayer of the existence of our environment and the possibility of inhabiting it. Another way to reconnect is by observing the natural cycle of the beings, respecting it, and not making it dirty. And in our daily actions, we generate compost, take care of native bees, consume local food, and through stories, we transmit messages to people to take care of their environment.
Y si tenemos un minuto, queremos compartirles una poesía de un compañero totonaca, se llama Juan Tiburcio, y habla sobre el agua. Un Tiburcio. Soy agua que humedece la tierra. Soy rayo de luz que penetra las plantas. Soy un fruto que produce las semillas. Soy caña que derrama la miel. Soy milpa que ofrece la mazorca. Soy lágrima que se seca en tu rostro. Palabras y cantos de los totonacos de Chumatlán, Veracruz.
I am water that moistens the earth. I am a ray of light that penetrates the plants. I am a fruit that produces seeds. I am a reed that spills honey. I am a cornfield that offers the cob. I am a tear that dries on your face. Words and songs of the Tonacas. Un Tiburcio, Chumatlán, Veracruz.
Gracias. Thank you. Thank you for everybody that didn't understand. The first part of everything they said was their last concluding words, but then they shared a poem. And the name of the poet is Un Tiburcio. Thank you so much for sharing that last poem. The brave souls were still in the session with us. If you want to share any questions, you can all put them in the chat. A lot of what we were hearing tonight was about connections to land. And people were asking questions about, a lot of people asking questions about they have mixed heritage. This person has mixed heritage from 7 different countries. What is their process of connecting to land? There was beautiful answers inside the chat as well. We recommend everyone go and see them. But I wonder if the people who are here in the call tonight have any answers for the audience.
I can probably address to that. It's just like maybe like others can follow, but I guess there was one which was particularly because from Darjeeling, and I know there are a lot of, we are very, very small number, to be honest, to even do anything about it when I say I'm indigenous, because it came after thousands and thousands of years to say I'm indigenous, because there was so much of silencing of our voices as the people, as the elders that our ancestors came from, that to say that I belong to this land. And so I guess when people with mixed heritage kind of, because there are always this narrative also about like why indigenous people are getting a space to talk about it, what is so great about indigenous people, what is why they are important. I'm sure there is this alternative confusion that gets into this whole conversation of climate change, why indigenous people. So I just wanted to be very, from my space that I come from, I wanted to come to tell, when I say I'm indigenous, it doesn't come from the space of arrogance, it comes from the space of love for my land, for the rivers who are dying. And when I say I'm indigenous, I do not mean to say that you don't belong to this land. So that's something which I want to be very clear about it. And another part is, I am fortunate enough, and I say privileged enough, to know where my roots are till now. And I really want to be in a space of love as well as pride for people to not forget their roots. I want to remind people who have their roots to acknowledge their roots, because people who have confusion, or maybe in that space of I'm in this land for so long and I do belong to the land, which is the case. I mean, even I it's not my land. I belong to that land. It's that language that we carry with our ancestral way of living. So I think it's very important to kind of really respect the knowledge that the indigenous communities have had for such a long time to live with the land. So it is mostly got to do with safeguarding the knowledge, because as I speak, our elders are dying. People who have lived with the land without knowing how to like pick up a cell phone and do all this work, but they still know, like, in 4th of October 2023, 7-year-old dam was bursted in Sikkim. 7-year-old dam, and it killed more than 50 people, and all the bridge was gone. The river was in a disaster in Darjeeling and Sikkim areas. Now, what really connected these people was not some big uh, bridges or hi-fi technology. All the elders gathered together and they built a handmade bridge to connect the people to get the food from the other side of the river. So when I say I'm indigenous, I am respecting those knowledges that our elders have had, and maybe there is some part which I carry in my own DNA. So that's what, when it's not about othering, it's not about saying, hey, you don't belong to this land. It's about asking you to respect the knowledge that our ancestors carried, because we are in a trauma. Our generation has been silenced for such a long time. The colonization told our language is vile. The colonization told you are not supposed to wear your dress. Say the same song but in our language. So there is a big space where we are in a trauma right now. And our future generation, our elders are in trauma. So when we say we are indigenous, it comes from a lot of acknowledgement of that trauma and finding the courage to say that. And I guess we need support because we all belong to that land. The land is not mine, neither yours. It's we belong to the land. If we save that land, we all can exist in harmony. But when we find insecurity by somebody saying I'm indigenous, that means you have to go into your own reflection of where can you find your roots. And it can be from the seven, all the mixed heritage. Maybe you can find inclination in one root which calls you, but you have to listen to yourself, because we come from the space of understanding where our roots coming from, and we're trying our best to save it. We're trying our best to create that bridge of love, but it comes from the space of love. That's all I wanted to say, because there were a lot of questions around it. So yeah, thanks.
I don't have anything like so much to add. I know it's like pretty down to the, but I wanted to thank both of you, Blake and Tinsun. Yes. And I just wanted to thank you and everybody for showing up on this call. I mean, I don't know who Johnny is, but he's been really active in this chat. And so is Cher. So, anyways, I just been really enjoying the questions, and to all my relatives and to my aunties and uncles and sisters and brothers on the call here. Like, I just want to say I extend from my house to yours, good medicines and all the way around to everybody. But yeah, it's what a great evening. And I just appreciate the spirit and the intention of bringing us together. And I'm sure our mother is super happy right now.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
You so much, Jonel. And yes, I hope she is. Alejandro and Yolo, any last final words?
Sí, mucho. Primero, en español, agradecerle a nuestras compañeras sus palabras y pues a ustedes, Blake, Sinsun, pues muchísimas gracias por la invitación. Estamos muy gustosos. Ahorita Ale va a tratar de traducir lo que estoy diciendo. Me hubiera gustado, no saben en este momento qué necesidad tengo de poder hablar fluidamente el inglés para decir en muchas emociones y sobre todo pensar que esta acción de contar cuentos acá en México, en la diversidad de culturas que hay en nuestro territorio, siempre ha sido una práctica muy antigua, muy antigua. La gente ofrenda, la gente canta, la gente baila y eso activa mucho, nos reconecta mucho con el agua, con la tierra, con la fertilidad más, las mujeres. Y pienso que actualmente no debemos de dejar de hacerlo, seguir agradeciendo y ofrendando. Son los actos más pequeños que nos ayudan al corazón a estar ahí, presentes, siempre.
Well, we are very glad to participate with you, and thank you for all of you. And we think for have this connection with the nature, we need to dance, sing, to tell stories for the Naku. This is our Naku. Make some pottery, some art for all the world, and make offers to the nature all the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we close out the night. Thank you for sharing the Naku, the heart with all of us.